It's me, Chucky. My mommy is the best. Super mom, love you, She helps mommy. It makes my snack. Go snack. I just might go back. You wait for the straw. Brush. Get ready for it's super slippery. I'm super strong.
Welcome to Healing for the Soul podcast. It is your go-to resource for parents and want-to-be parents who strive for success without sacrificing connection and well-being. Each episode delivers actionable strategies and inspiring insights to help you build emotional intelligence and resilience for yourself and for your family, strengthen relationships with yourself, your partner, and your children, master parenting as an entrepreneur, even while raising young children, discover life and parenting hacks that simplify your journey, explore hypnosis and other healing modalities for deeper transformation. This podcast isn't just about parenting and the fertility journey. It's about creating harmony, wealth, and alignment in every area of life. And this is season 6. And I am your host, Supermom Robin Stoltman. And today's episode is sponsored by Dr. Karen Parker. She is the founder of Quantum Human Design and a pioneer at the intersection of energy, psychology, and quantum science. With a background in psychology and holistic health, Dr. Parker has spent over 2 decades empowering people to align with their true nature, decode their energetic blueprint, and live with greater clarity and confidence. She's internationally recognized for integrating traditional human design with quantum physics, making this once a Stoic system practical, grounded, and deeply transformational. Through her workshops, online programs, and best-selling books, Karen has helped thousands of people unlock their purpose and potential. She's here today to talk about how we can reclaim nervous system safety, overcome burnout, and transform our lives by understanding how our energy shapes behavior, health, and identity. Please welcome Dr. Karen Parker.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited that you are here as well. So who or what inspired you to create this quantum human design?
Well, I would say in the very beginning of my career, I was a nurse, and I didn't last very long as a nurse because I'm not very good at taking orders. And I started right after that my own home birth practice as a midwife. This was a little bit before it was on trend to have home birth midwives, but this was in Texas, and it was a pretty acceptable thing to do in Texas at the time. And what I found was that I got to where I could almost predict who was going to have, oh, hello, baby, who was going to have a good, safe birth, and who would have complications and who would be transferred. And that kind of sat with me and got my attention, because what I noticed is that in the stories of when I was working with women, when they had stories about not feeling supported, or when they had stories about being overly controlling of the process, that narrative sort of set them up, to have challenges in the process. I want to be clear as I'm saying this, that I'm not saying if you have a negative story, it's going to impact your birth outcome. And if you have a great story, you'll never have a challenging birth outcome. So, but there was definitely a correlation. And that sat with me for a long time. I later on, when I had my own children, I have 8 children. When I had my own children, I had to close my home birth practice because that wasn't compatible. And I became a life coach and studied energy psychology and other kinds of modalities. And I started to see the continuation of that storytelling theme play out with my clients. So when my clients were stuck, if they had self-sabotaging patterns, if they had struggles with money, I could start to see that those struggles were all held within their story. And so really looking at stories and how to systematically help people begin to unravel limiting stories, or decode limiting stories and recode with better stories, became kind of it's been a lifelong obsession. It's probably the best way to describe it. So
No, I love this. So if I heard correctly, you have 8 children as well?
I do. Do you have 8 children?
Yes, I do. This is number 8 with me.
I know moms with 8.
There is not very many at all. Mine are all 10 and under. Well, 10 is the oldest, and 2 months tomorrow. For this one right now. So I'm like, there's another mom that understands my life. So I definitely understand why you would have to close the home birth program that you had going on. But I think that's amazing that you were able to tell who was gonna, like who had what for issues with the home birth even. That, I mean, like, that's very intuitive in your designing of this. How did you come up with that? Like, how did you just like know?
Well, in the beginning, I did just know. It was intuitive, and I'm a scientist. I like to understand why. That's always a big piece for me. So I sort of magically fell into human design as a body of work. So quantum human design is my iteration of traditional human design, and I actually studied with and worked for the founder of traditional human design for a few years. And human design, you were saying in the beginning, it's possibly related to Enneagram. It's actually a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, and Judaic Kabbalah. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of all these different ancient and modern esoteric personality assessment systems that are all based in archetypes. And so I love traditional human design. It really brought me a lot. It's a really powerful tool. I think a powerful tool to help people decode the story they're telling right now. So whenever we're creating in our lives, we're really basically telling a story. And the story we tell about who we are and how we are is partially responsible for what we're experiencing and what we're creating. So the story that we're telling is a story that oftentimes comes from our ancestral programming. We know now we carry some of our story on a genetic level. That story comes from familial and cultural expectations. It comes from societal training. It comes from our lived experiences. And oftentimes the story that we are telling about ourselves is a story that we've cultivated as a way of protecting ourselves, particularly if we experienced in any way an upbringing that, and this isn't about parents, this is about life in general, where we maybe internalized the story that it's not okay or safe for us to be who we are and how we are. So when we internalize that story and we move into protective patterns to keep our authentic self safe, that oftentimes eventually leads us to either burnout or difficulties with sustainability or sometimes self-sabotage patterns, because ultimately that authentic self wants to come out. And if it doesn't get to express itself, it can become quite destructive in our lives. So after I studied and worked with traditional human design for about 10 years, I started to get a lot of clients who were saying things to me like, I love human design. It's really amazing. And if I had encountered it 10 years ago, I really would have related to it. But now, since that time, I've done a lot of therapy or I've done other kinds of spiritual practices, and I don't really relate to that anymore. And what I found was that I was getting a lot of clients who I think, through many other modalities, because it's certainly not the only way to do it, had really started to decode their story. They knew who they weren't. They understood, okay, I'm sensitive, and because I'm emotionally sensitive, I've cultivated patterns that make me a people pleaser, because when I make everybody else happy, then the environment outside here is good and I can be at peace and my nervous system can be somewhat regulated, right? And now that they've done that work and they've discovered that, they've decoded that, what they were really looking for was what's next, right? Now that I've decoded, how do I recode a better story? And so I took all of the vocabulary of traditional human design. I think in 2013, I took all the vocabulary words of traditional human design. I took a big fat Rodale's thesaurus, went through and found alternative language for traditional human design, went into a sound lab, and for several years tested the frequency of different words, and consciously chose a way of speaking the language of human design, but in better language, and created what I call quantum human design, which is really the recoding part of the decoding of your story.
I love that, because I'm like, that's where I've been at, is like I'm in the recode part, and I'm like, I don't know how to recode.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have hypnosis, like that's my main modality that I use for that, and like I combine it with NLP. But even at the same time, it's still that struggle of the recoding part, because I don't know everything. Like none of us know the whole story
Right.
of our background to begin with. Like we only know pieces of it.
Yeah, and I think what's so fun about the recoding piece is that it's kind of wide open, right? You can decide once you've decoded your patterns, you get to decide who you want to be. You get to decide what you're going to choose. But that's actually can be really overwhelming, right? When somebody says you can be anything you want to be, it's like, well, okay, great. What do I pick? It's like going to the candy store with the kids. If you don't tell them you can pick 2 kinds of candy, you're going to be in there forever because there's just too many choices, right? So you know, this process of exploring your energy, and really one of the things I didn't say was that human design is, as I said, is based on Eastern and Western astrology. Where you, based on your birth date, you can calculate your chart, a specific chart, which is your energy blueprint, which gives you kind of a systematic way to start looking at what stories do I need to decode, because these stories are part of my soul path and my soul curriculum, and they're encoded in that chart. And then it also gives you a very systematic way to begin to recode that story, to start to look at what's the main character in my story, and how can I, knowing the qualities of who I am as the main character in my story, how can I, get back into my body? How can I feel what right and wrong feels like for me decision wise in my body? How do I recognize what are my sacred flaws in my story, places where I'm designed to push against myself as catalysts for my own growth? What do I want in the context of the bigger picture of who I am?
Is a lot that a person could really go through.
Yes.
Because I was wondering, like, does our birth chart, like, that's something I've always wondered, is like, I've had people offer, like, to help me go like through a birth chart, through my birth chart or birth astrology or something like that. I don't know if they're the same things, but I'm like, I don't know if that, I don't know much about that. Like, what would that actually do? Because it almost sounds like, from what I'm understanding, is like what you're doing is you're taking that part of it and you're adding another tool or tools to recode based on the specific information that you have, like from when we're born? Or am I misunderstanding?
Think of it this way. We're born into a story, right? You have a
Yeah.
story. Think of it as you're born into a story. And if you think about a story is just comprised of archetypes, parts of the story, right? So
Yeah.
your birth chart, and this is true even in astrology, right? Your birth chart is really just a collection of different archetypes that are going to most likely be themes in your life. So let's say if hypothetically let's say if you, Robin, ran your chart and you found that one of the archetypes that you played with in your chart is hermit, being a hermit, right? And some of us have what we call hermit energy. Well, that's an archetype, right? If we look at the archetype of hermit in storytelling, we might see that in the shadow, we have the wicked witch in the wood, right? Who
Oh,
that's maybe a nasty hermit, but a hermit, right? She lives away in the woods, nobody finds her. That's a shadow of an archetype of a hermit. On the other side, maybe another expression of that shadow is somebody who's an introvert who really needs alone time, who isn't getting enough alone time. That can be a shadow of hermit energy as well. So if right now you have a brand new baby, right? And let's say you were feeling really unsupported. Maybe you didn't live close to your family and you didn't have support, and you have hermit energy as part of your design, and you were feeling like 2 weeks into postpartum, like, I'm just so touched out, right? I haven't had a minute to myself, and I just want to go take a shower and take a nap, right? Which is normal to feel. If you have hermit energy and you didn't get support to be able to go just take some time for yourself, you might start to really suffer in that postpartum phase because you didn't get to fulfill that natural part of yourself that needs alone time for renewal, right?
Yeah, that makes sense now.
And so you would know in your story, I'm a person who needs alone time for recharging. And I know that I need to take that alone time. I know I need to take alone time, but not too much alone time, because then I'm hiding from life and not actually showing up for my life, right? And finding that balance between those energies, because archetypes are not labels, they're not static, they're dynamic. They represent fields of information about who you are.
Interesting. Now I'm thinking about myself because I'm the water, the Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
And like mine is, so I was born on February 11. I won't say the year because there's people out there that can steal data, but I'm just saying, I'm just thinking that for me, I'm like, I know there's something spiritual about the number 11. And like, I've always been attracted to amethyst, like the color purple. Like, that's one thing I've always been attracted to. And then, like, for me, I'm like, I don't know what I just know that there's the water carrier is all I remember.
Mhm.
like for what the Aquarius stands for. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's like the always flowing. And then my brain just like, that's money because money is currency. It's flowing. And I'm
Mm.
like, okay, maybe that's, I don't know. My brain is just like trying to think of that now because I'm down that rabbit hole.
Mhm.
Because that's fascinating when you're talking like the hermit part of it. But I never once thought about that our birth and our timing would actually play a piece of us as adults. I never even thought about that.
Mhm. Mhm. So at the moment of your birth, the
Yeah.
planets hold certain positions, and those positions highlight certain archetypes in the human story, and that's really encoded in your chart. Whether you're doing human design or whether you're doing even traditional astrology,
Yeah.
that birth chart is just a code for what are the what are the parts of your human story are you going to be most likely to learn through and grow through over the course of your life.
I probably got a lot. Just thinking like how the alignment in my life has gone. I'm like, I must have a lot to learn. And
So,
I
well, we
appreciate
all
that.
do. That's the cool part, right? That's totally the cool part. So, all
Well,
right.
yeah.
So if you're born on February 11th, right? This is
Yeah.
gross. This is grossly generalized. So, because that's just I'm not looking at your whole chart, but
Yeah.
part of what might be life themes for you would include the need to have answers. You're curious, and because you're curious is probably why you have a podcast, right? It's your way of having conversations with people so you can learn new things, right?
Yeah,
Um,
it is.
Also, you have the energy for marriage and relationships. And you also have the energy, if you're not careful, or if their values in the relationship get broken, like you have rules and agreements in the relationship, then you also can be you have the same energy for divorce. And for you, that means like if you're done, you're done. Like when you're done, that's it. There's no going back. Nobody can negotiate with you when you decide you're done. So part of what you have to learn about is revolutions. How do you create good revolutions in your life? How do you make sure you're not holding your ground and being stubborn and making revolutions that maybe don't support you? Or where are there times when maybe you need to make a revolution, but you're putting it off because you don't want to do it?
Okay, that right there is enough to make me a believer on this part. Most definitely, because my husband, he's like, he can't figure out why. I'm like, when I'm done with something, I'm just done.
Yeah.
Like family members, I have no problem. Like I can drop them, like I'm done, and I don't even associate with them anymore. And it's like what you just said, and it's like okay, but learning I can do versus what I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Like in that because there has to be that happy balance, and that's what I've definitely realized. Like if I want to bring something back after I've already made the decision that I'm not going to do something, bringing it back now has been very challenging
Mm-hmm.
because I think that energy that I carry, like what you had just said, I was like, oh, that is me. I definitely believe now that there is ongoing theme in my entire life for that because I'm very headstrong on things, and at the same time, working with that has been the challenge. So, and I'm just like, thank you for that because that is extremely helpful. Because now I'm like, now I really believe it. I just didn't. Nobody ever really told me to the depth of what you are of how important where our birth and like the stars and alignment and everything that you're talking about, like nobody has ever explained it to me that depth of
Mm-hmm.
what you just did as to why it's important for us to know that about ourselves. Because me, I'm like, the more I can know about myself, the better I'm able to prepare just as a parent, as a businesswoman, as like all the things that I'm doing. Like to me, that's empowerment, like right there. And I'm very
Right.
big on like empowering ourselves to do more, become more. And like when you said about the podcast, yes, of course. That's I'm like, that's why I had to. I'm being selfish. Might as well admit, like that's my one selfish thing is I'm like, I love learning about other people, and there's no better way to do it than to have a podcast
Mm-hmm.
and learn about what they're doing and how they're doing things differently because everybody's making a different impact in this world.
Yep.
Like, that's the point of it, and that's why I love it.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm also wondering, like when you talked earlier about like the frequency of language that you were in a lab,
Mm-hmm.
can you explain how the words that you were finding affect like the biology and nervous system?
Totally. Totally. So let's do a little experiment. Let's
Yeah.
think of you brought up money. Let's think of the word money.
Mhm.
So when and this is for your listeners too. Think of the word money for a minute.
Mhm.
Now, if I was doing this in a live call with a bunch of people if I asked people to say, okay, make a list for me of everything that comes up for you when you think about money, what comes up for you?
I've done the work. So the first thing that comes up for me is joy
Good. So I love that you said you've
and
done.
impact.
Yeah, I love that. Now, if we did this in a big group of people, we'd
Mm-hmm.
get joy, we'd get impact, we'd get freedom, we'd get fun, we'd also get power, we'd get dangerous, we'd get don't have enough, wish I had more, right? There's a whole big collection of meanings that we have about money. So when I
Yes.
said the word money, here's what happened in your body. As soon as I said the word money, your brain produced a photon storm. That's a storm of light. That photon storm, in turn, caused your brain to produce chemicals called neurotransmitters. Those neurotransmitters, in turn, created an emotional response. So if you have the word money and you have positive meanings behind the word money, like if you believe money is in flow and it brings me joy, right? Then your brain created neurotransmitters that produced a positive feeling in your body. That positive feeling, in turn, would calibrate your heart into a state of coherence, which would open up the creative parts of your brain, which would allow you to see more opportunities for money and would create a sense of well-being in the body. Now, the opposite is also true. If we say the word money and we have negative meanings around the word money, then the body produces neurotransmitters that create emotions that actually can trigger a low-grade stress response, fight or flight, right? And when we go into that stress response, it actually shuts down the creative parts of our brain. We can't see opportunity around us, and we get into reactive patterns or reactive cycles. The word itself is neutral, and that's an important piece to pay attention to. Words themselves are neutral until we give them meanings. But when we use high frequency words, it's easier for us to calibrate meanings around those words that match the frequency of the word. So for example, if I use the word money, that's a supercharged word, right? If I use the word
it is.
wealth, it's still sort of related to money in some ways, right? But wealth has a different quality of energy as a word. And it's a word that has far less charged meanings. And usually when I say the word wealth, it usually has positive meanings. And of course, that becomes a word that when we use wealth in place of money, when it's appropriate, right, then that word shifts our body's response to the theme of money.
So there really is no way to really trick the brain then, is there?
Well, I would say yes and no. You can trick the brain. I mean, you probably do some of this even with hypnotherapy. The brain gets very
I do.
with stories, right? We can tell this brain stories. And the brain, because the brain thinks in stories, if you tell the brain a really good story, it latches onto it. That's really one of the powerful ways that we can recode our identity, right? Is we start giving ourselves stories. Because when we tell ourselves stories, it activates a very different part of the brain than the reasoning, logical part of our brain. It's the part of our brain that's much more open to possibilities, right? It's where our imagination lives, and it's not where the doubt and suspicion lives, right? And so we can recode ourselves and recode our brain into thinking in new possibilities when we tell stories.
That is very true. And I've seen that with my kids. And I'm like, one of the things I've told myself, I'm like, why is it that I can tell my children a really good story that I made up in my head about this kid, Jack? He's a naughty boy. But I'm like, I want my kids to be good. So I'm giving them examples, but using them without them knowing it. So I'm doing this with Jack, and I'm like, I can do it really good with my kids. But then when it comes to me, I'm like, I don't like the story that I'm telling myself. Like, I want to change my story. And like, one of the things that I did is like, I was having trouble with one of the phrases that people use are like, rich people are evil, or about rich people being filthy rich.
Yep.
So one of the things that I've struggled like with those two things, or like the money is evil, because I've heard that from other people, and I'm like, I don't believe that anymore. And yet those three stories are still there for me. And I'm like, okay, I need to change the story because I don't like how I feel. Because like I can tell when I shift from that high frequency of like I'm joyful, I'm happy, like when I'm thinking about money and the impact that I get to make, and I get to do the different things, I'm like, that brings me like, light me up, fire me up, like I'm excited. But then when I start thinking about these other things, I'm like, I don't like this. I can't resonate with people who are in that lower frequency. And that's where like I notice like those changes. But then like one of the things I did was I'm like, of course I'm filthy rich. Look at the kids have always made messes. Well, not, let me always, but they're making messes. I mean, like, they play in the dirt. Like they're filthy. I'm like, of course I'm filthy rich. Like when
Mhm.
the stories are wanting to pop up, like when I'm in the moment on the fly, because I haven't had a chance to rewire that yet. But I'm like, I'm just giving you an example. I'm like, how does that like just even changing that, like when you're in the moment and you're on the fly, like for the affirmations almost, is that still affecting that biology and nervous system at the same level?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that you did that. That's such a great, I love that reframe on filthy rich. So think of it like this. This is a glass diamond, right? And if you think
Yep.
about money as being
Hmm.
a field of information, it's a field of information, right? And it's
Yeah,
just,
that's all it is.
it's all it is. And of course, we're calling in or living in that field or creating in that field, depending on where we identify, right? So if you're over here
Hmm.
going, filthy rich, oh, yeah, I hate the filthy rich, right? And that's where you live, and it's static, it's not moving, it becomes part of your identity, right? Then you're only seeing this little tiny part of the field, and your body is responding to it in the way that we just said. And probably if your body, if you encounter a rich person, right, and your belief system is, oh, that's filthy rich, you're going to immediately respond to that person internally and physiologically in a defense response, right, in a
Yeah.
judgment response, even potentially. But if you are shifting on the fly, and saying, well,
Yeah.
yeah, I am filthy rich. I have these children that are making these messes, and it's glorious, and they are part of my wealth, right? Because our children are
Yeah,
part,
they are.
right? And now you're defining, we'll say the word abundance rather than money. You're defining your abundance from over here, from this different perspective, and you were able to shift yourself from this to this on the fly. Well, you're also absolutely changing your body's response to the narrative on the fly. That's really brilliant.
Well, that's awesome because that's what I was wondering. I'm like, I started questioning, I'm like, is this a good thing that I'm doing this on the fly for this? Because that's literally like what I've been doing. I've been trying to teach my kids this at the same time and how they're rewiring. Because all my kids, like I said, they're 10 and under, and I'm being very mindful of, okay, how do I want them to act when they get older? Like
Mm-hmm.
even with the stress response, I'm like, a couple of my stress responses, not so great, and I'm working on it. And it's like, okay. And that's also why I'm like, what I want my kids to yell like when I'm upset? No. So I'm like, how can I rewire this? So instead of yelling, I'm like, okay, just deep breathe, walk away. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things I've done for years is walk away and the deep breathing. But now I'm adding, okay, instead of going to clean, I'm going to take an exercise, use a healthier outlet for that. And that, because I'm like, it's so powerful our words are. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you heard of that. I know it's not a snowflake, but that study of how the water, one area or the one water was all positive, loving, happy words, the ice crystal studies, and then the other one was all negative. And I don't remember like if the words were spoken over it or if it was just like the thought energy.
I think they were spoken. Yeah.
Yeah. And see, that's one of the things that I think about, like as we're talking, when you showed that crystal,
Mm-hmm.
that you had, it's like that really is powerful. Like it's on the other side. That's I
Absolutely.
tell people. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and here's the other thing for you. Like
Yeah.
and again, I want to acknowledge you for your progress, because when you're in that react, and we all do this, right? When we're in a
Yeah.
reactive, especially when we're tired and we have a new baby, right? When you're
Yep.
reactive,
That's where I'm at right now, and I'm aware of that.
then when we open our mouths to speak, especially as parents, we sometimes speak from what's called the amygdala part of our brain. That's the programmed, unconscious 95% of our brain that's just reacting to life rather than intentionally choosing. The fact that you could catch the pattern and interrupt it and give it a different perspective means you're not even operating out of your amygdala anymore. You're over here in your prefrontal cortex being very cognitive and conscious, and you have already disrupted the reactive cycle by intentionally and with great awareness being able to disrupt it and give it a different meaning. And that's huge. That's huge. I think, again, I'd like for you to acknowledge yourself that that's a big step to be able to catch yourself and reframe it. And I think it's interesting to think about that through the lens of parenting, especially because I feel like a lot of us as parents at this phase with where we are in understanding the brain and patterns and lineage and all those pieces. I mean, I see so many parents that are wanting to recode their parenting story for the sake of their kids, right? And so much of that
Yes.
is about changing the way we speak to our children. And when we start learning how to speak to our children differently, we go through 3 cycles, and that's those same cycles are exactly the same that we go through when we learn to speak to ourselves differently, right? And in the first part of the cycle, you're like, dang it, I wasn't going to say that anymore, and I did it again, right? And we beat ourselves up. That's phase 1. And I always tell parents when I'm teaching them this, that that's actually a good phase. So don't be mad at yourself, because you're recognizing what you want to change. That's actually cool. That's way better than not knowing what you want to change, right? In part 2, when we go to phase 2, we're like, sit on the floor, right? We know we want to say something different, but it doesn't come out of our mouths right naturally yet. And we're struggling, and it's very disjointed, and we feel kind of embarrassed that we can't say what we're trying to get out of our mouth. And when we get to phase 3, then it gets easier, right? And you were in phase 3. You were like, oh wait, reframe. That takes work. And I think that's admirable that you've done that much work.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm going to give myself credit for that. I'm exactly in phase 2 with the kids right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, some of my words just don't get there. And I'm like, I know what I want to say, but some of them just get stopped. And it's like, I get frustrated with it. And then it's like, okay, you know what? I just haven't had the sleep. Seriously, I'm trying to tell myself, I'm like, just be nice to myself. Because who else is going to be nice to me?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's where I'm glad that it's just not me just thinking, because for me, I'm like, well, maybe it's because my brain injury that's why I've had that start and stop sometimes. But when you just had said that, I was like, that's what I'm doing in the parenting part right now. I'm like, no, I want to say it's fun because my kids are the one had said the one day, well, we all know our names. And I was like, I know that, but it's you guys know which child I was talking about. And I'm like, my parents, they only had 2 kids. And I'm like, I've got 8 of you. And I'm like, I know what one I was talking to, but they know. Now they know. But it's I told them, I'm like, I promise you, I knew all of your names when I had you. I tell the kids now, it's just because I seriously did know their names. And I do. It's just the lack of sleep and different things in life affect it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was also wondering the impact that the lack of sleep or when events happen in life,
Mm-hmm.
how does that affect us?
So let's go back to that 95% of you in that reactive amygdala space, and then the cortical part of you that's the 5% of how you show up, right? So when I coach parents, I always talk about how when we are, and this is actually taken from Alcoholics Anonymous, but with a little twist added, when we are hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or stressed, and I might add for parents also self-care deprived, then if you think of being able to intentionally intentionally deliberately respond, that's the 5%. To be able to do that, you have to have a full tank, right? You have to have reserves. And when you are hungry, angry, lonely, tired, stressed, or lacking in self-care, that energy bank for being able to be intentional and deliberate gets empty. And so, yeah, of course, when you're exhausted and sleep deprived, the brain is not working the way that it normally works. You probably know that too, even from having a brain injury, that when you're tired, the symptoms get worse, right? And so then part of it is because the brain needs sleep. In fact, we know, the research we've had in the last 10 years on sleep, the brain needs sleep because that's how it cleans itself. That's how it stays healthy. That's how it stays, its ability to focus is dependent on rest and sleep and all the hormones and the physiology that happens in the sleep time. So yeah, when you're tired or stressed or angry or lonely or, all of those pieces, it's going to be much easier for you to default to that 95% of yourself, that amygdala reactive part of yourself, rather than your intentional self.
Yeah, and I would agree. I definitely noticed the different aspects of having my brain injury. Even though it was when I was 16, so it's been 22 or 23 years now since it happened. But even at that, it's still, there's warning signs. I'm able to catch it now. But in the beginning, I didn't. But it's only been since I've been doing this work on myself that I've really been able to catch, okay, I know, almost at the time of the day, I cannot do certain things because my brain just does not want to work through it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I've tried to explain to people who don't have a brain injury that it's like I actually feel pain in my brain in the
Mm-hmm.
front because my brain injury was a front right lobe
Mm-hmm.
traumatic brain injury. So it's like I feel physical pain in my brain when I'm doing too much. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like trying to explain to people, I'm like, that's the part that other people can't understand. They're like, well, it's like a headache. And I'm like, no, it's just like, how do you explain that pain to somebody else? But it's like, at the same time, I almost wonder if sometimes in that, if it's just like my brain's way of like sabotage almost, because it's like there's something there. If that makes any sense at
I
all,
would
like
call it
what I'm
sabotage.
asking.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it sabotage. I would say that's your brain communicating to you that, hey, I'm at capacity, and
Hmm.
and that's okay. Like you're at capacity, so time to unplug, time to go restock, replenish, recharge your battery, go, watch something stupid on Netflix or whatever you can't do with kids, but go look out the
Yeah.
window for 10 minutes so that you can like just get yourself back online, right?
Yeah. Well, no, and I like that because I know I'm just like I'm so fascinated about like what you're talking about at the depth that you're talking about this. So I'm also wondering like why are so many high achieving, purpose driven people burning out and how can they heal from this or use the human design to help them heal?
So I think that high achieving people burn out because oftentimes they have underlying hidden motivations that aren't healthy. So
Hmm.
for example, there are sometimes you have to go back and explore why are you wanting to achieve what you're wanting to achieve. So if you're mission and purpose driven, I think you're a mission and purpose driven a person, right? You have a
Oh yeah,
big,
I am. I want to
yeah.
make a bigger impact on this world.
Totally. And that's a healthy motivation for being driven. But some people are driven because they want to prove their worth, right? They're trying to prove their value. They're trying to fulfill some kind of expectation, maybe from their families. They're trying to use money sometimes as a way of proving their value. They're tying their success to their self-worth. So when we have underlying unhealthy motivations, that often causes us to burn out. The second source of burnout is, and this is something that human design can really help you with, in addition to helping
Yeah.
you rewrite your story so your motivations are clean. Human
Yeah.
design is a really powerful tool to help you explore how do you best use your energy. Not everybody is
Oh.
designed to use their energy in the same way. And so, for example, depending
Mhm.
on your human design chart, we see that some people are designed to work and some people are designed to work a lot and they really love working a lot. Some people are not designed to work a lot. Some people are designed to manage other people doing the work. And if you're not utilizing and tapping into your energy correctly, and you're pushing with energy you don't have, you run the risk of burning yourself out. You also run the risk of burning yourself out if you're doing something you hate. If you're not aligned with your authentic self and you're hiding yourself from the world, then it takes a lot of energy to be something you're not. And if you're trying to be something or someone that you're not, you're spending a lot of energy out here constructing a facade or a mask. And if you're hiding behind that mask and you're using all your energy to hold that mask up, you're going to burn yourself out just trying to be something or someone you're not.
Interesting. So that would explain like a lot of so when I've been around a lot of the high achievers, like I've been at conferences where they're all high achievers. I mean, like that's why they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed it was really weird, but it was like an ongoing theme that a lot of them had money issues. They're like, well, they're making all this money, like six figures on up, and me, I'm like, I'm with very, very, very little. I'm not having like the same problems that they've got. And it
Mm-hmm.
was really weird, but like a lot of them would chase the power, the control that comes with money, or
Mm-hmm.
they'd be chasing like that not good enough. And me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, the only thing I got that I want to do that it ticks me off is I don't have enough money yet to where I can make that bigger impact. Because like I see the impact that I'm supposed to be making in this world,
Mm-hmm.
and not having the ability to do that yet is what frustrates me. Because I'm like, I just want to make the impact already. Like I want to give back, I want to help people, and I'm like, where's my turn? But when I've been in these events, it's just so weird. So I definitely agree with like what you're saying for this high achieving, purpose driven people. Why they get burned out is they're chasing the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're making it more about themselves versus like me. I'm like, I'm about other people. I want people to succeed. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like, it brings me so much joy seeing I get a lot of joy seeing other people succeed. That's why I'm like, it's like a charge, it's like plugging in the battery. It's like
Mhm.
the Energizer Bunny, like you're charging me up. Like when I see people succeed, that's why I'm like, when I see rich people succeed, and that's, of course, I've had to change my story. I didn't always believe this, but I'm like, when I see a rich person, I'm like, what did they do that I'm not doing? How can I change what I need to do? Like a strategy, like what can I do differently to match where they're going? Like I
Mhm.
learn from other people versus being upset with them on
Mhm.
that.
Totally. And I think, and I think, again, they may end up creating and achieving the same thing, but the underlying motivation changes the quality of energy. So I have a statement that I
Mm,
use that says the sustainability of the ends is determined by the integrity of the means. So if we try to create something out of integrity, when I say out of integrity, I'm not talking necessarily
yeah.
about moral integrity, but out of integrity with the authentic self. When we're
Mhm.
trying to create something and we're not aligned with our authentic self, whatever we end up creating isn't sustainable. It doesn't have a strong foundation because it's already built on a mask, right? It's already built on
Mhm.
a fake exterior. So if we move
Yeah.
into that authentic place where we know who we are and we're able to tap into that, and we're courageous enough to really live and fulfill that expression of who we are, when we create and live from that place, then whatever we end up building has sustainability, and we're less vulnerable to burnout and other kinds of boom and bust cycles of energy.
No, I like that because that boom and bust energy is very much real. Like
Hmm.
I'm sure all of us have experienced that when we're doing something that we love and versus something that we hate. Like for me, my kids, they give me so much energy and they light me up so much, but I'm like, you can't make money off your kids. I'm just, can't. They make money doing daycare for other people's kids at the same time. That's an alternative. And at the same time, I was also wondering, like you speak about like the connection between, is there a connection between purpose and wellness?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you are on purpose, when you have, like in your case, really a bigger vision or a bigger purpose, that becomes a sticking point so that you have something to work towards that brings you joy and brings you alignment with your authentic self. And we know that when you're living true to your purpose, when you're creating with purpose, it increases your immune response. It makes you more sustainable physiologically and physically.
Yeah.
It gives you more motivation and drive.
Oh
It
yeah.
makes you more, it makes you better able to bend and flow with whatever comes down the path, if you will. I mean, staying connected to purpose absolutely amplifies wellness and well-being in every area of your life.
Well, I definitely appreciate that because like I'm just thinking, like at times, like on the journey to entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
Like this journey is the loneliest journey I've ever been on. And my husband's like, "You're not alone. You've got me. You've got the kids." And I'm like, "No, you don't understand." I'm like, "It's a journey. It's an internal journey that I can't explain. Like I
Hmm.
can't even explain to other to people that are employees because it's like they don't understand like the entrepreneur brain. Like I swear it works different."
It's totally different. It's totally different.
Yeah, and it's like it's hard to explain to somebody else. Like I'm always thinking like what can I do differently? Who can I help today? Like what is it? I'm always about somebody else and helping them.
Hmm.
That is like this is like the loneliest road I've ever been on. And it's like at the same time, it's like nobody else has that vision but
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
And it's like trying to bring it sometimes into the world can be so challenging, but like to keep going and going after the same dream when like nobody else around me is like I get it quite a bit. It's like just give up already on, certain areas. And I'm like, but I can't. Like I can't explain that feeling. Like it's literally like I get a recharge out of knowing that I'm making a difference.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's like when you're talking like this journey, like that's the part that if I'm understanding correctly, but that's all part of this normalcy of like when it's that bigger impact that you're making
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
keep going.
Absolutely. And I do appreciate too what you're saying about entrepreneurs think differently. And I would say, again, that big purpose piece, I think when we talk about the entrepreneurial journey, especially when we talk about it as women and as mothers, right?
Yeah.
First of all, it's a journey where, the entrepreneurial mother balances things that I don't think anybody can understand. I mean, just here you are, you're doing an interview with a baby in a sling, right? I can't tell you how many classes I've taught with a baby in a sling, or a child in a laundry basket sleeping at my feet, right? It's like you adapt your life to your vision and to your purpose, because your kids are your purpose. But I think for a lot of mothers, especially, and our purpose is for our kids, right? I'm
Yes.
a grandmother now. I have 3 grandkids and a 4th one on the way. It's like the passion around continuing to do this work and not being willing to leave this planet until the planet is the planet that I want my grandchildren to inherit, right? It's like, I'm not leaving
Yes.
till we're done, right? And we're going to be done when we stop hurting each other, and we'll stop hurting each other when we stop traumatizing each other, right? That's the mission, and that's the purpose. And that connection to purpose, I think, gives you superhuman powers, especially as a mother, because you're doing what's already a superhuman job, raising a family. And on top of that, you're going through this tremendous journey of personal growth. I mean, I think being an entrepreneur is about showing your heart to the world and exposing your heart at the deepest level. It's vulnerable. Like, I absolutely concur with you. It's lonely sometimes because, if you sit at a dinner table with other people and they say, well, what do you do? You're like, it's like, there's no for it, right? It's like, I don't know, right? It's so much easier to say, oh, mom, everybody gets that piece, but that's not all that you are. And that purpose piece, having it connected to that bigger purpose, that big why, that gives you the drive to keep going, I mean, I used to sleep when my littlest, she's 16 now. When she was, a baby, my assistant quit the day I gave birth. So I was like completely unsupported, right?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
I had to keep the business going. So I was literally like waking up in the middle of the night, nursing the baby. I have an international client base, so I knew I had to answer customer service emails in order to stay timely in the middle of the night, because I had people in all time zones. So I would like nurse the baby, get her back to sleep, get my laptop out, answer emails, put the laptop back under the bed. It's like the superhuman things we do as mother entrepreneurs it's unfathomable. I don't know if any other humans can relate to the sometimes the absurd level of passion, but also the level of commitment that comes from that deep alignment.
I am so thankful that you just said like what I've been doing. Like, I have a virtual assistant now.
Uh-huh.
However, I'm still doing like what you said. Like you literally nurse, and then you work a little bit. Well, now I can do it on my phone, like what I can. But I'm like, literally, like that's what I've been doing. And then it's like I do it all the time, all day long. And it's like I'm also working on being mindful, like when my kids are
Mhm.
home, like they're not in school right now. Like, well, they're in school right now, like as we're recording this. But when they're out of school and they're at home, I'm like, okay, I got to be mindful of like, okay, there's people here now to interact with that I need to also pay attention to at the same time. Because like you said, yeah, I'm so thankful that you said that, because I'm like, that's exactly what I go through. And people wonder, and it's just like, but that vision, like I swear some days it drives me like crazy, because it's like I see it.
Right.
And like when you're moving closer to it and then trying to explain to other people that just don't see it, like you said, like when you're at the table and you're like, I'm a mom. I'm like, I'm more than a mom. I'm doing all these things. Or like people think you do like 20,000 things. I'm like, well, yeah, I do, because I'm the customer service. I'm, the one that's coming up with content. I'm the one that's, putting it out there. I'm the one that's got to do the emails. I'm the one that does everything, not
Mhm.
just one thing. And then there's also the kids. And I'm like, how am I handling this? And then I'm like, okay, I gotta be nice to me. So I'm
Mhm.
just wondering, for people that may be feeling stuck or anxious or lost right now,
Mhm.
what is the first energetic shift you would recommend that they make?
So I think the first energetic shift that I would encourage people to make is to really tune into the body, because so much of the time especially when we start spinning or we're reacting or we've got hidden motivations, part of what's also happens
Yeah.
is we check out of the body, and we start making decisions based on our thoughts, based on the amygdala, and not making decisions based on what feels good and right in the body. And our bodies are actually really good compasses. They help us really know and sense what should I be doing, what shouldn't I be doing. And when we can get back in touch with, okay, what does right feel like in my body and what does not right feel like in my body, and start practicing making decisions based on what feels right in the body, even if it's just little decisions in the beginning, it starts reconnecting us with a different way of making decisions and choices, and starts putting us back on a path where we make more authentic, more aligned choices.
I love that. And then I was also wondering, do you have now I know you had mentioned that you have books. Is this new book, Quantum Wellness,
Mhm.
is that going to really help get that health in alignment? Or what does that mean? And how does that differ from traditional wellness advice?
Well, what quantum wellness does is it looks at what story are you telling underneath your body and your health practices. But it's not just about health and wellness. It's actually about making good aligned decisions in every area of your life. So the title of the book is Quantum Wellness. And when we talk about quantum wellness, we're really talking about the ability to make good aligned decisions with your money, with your relationships, with your career path, with your body, with every aspect of your life. Because when we're in an alignment and we're making good decisions in every area of our life, we're naturally going to be having or experiencing wellness in the body. So it is a systematic approach to look at your human design, which is the personality assessment system that's based on your astrology, looking at your human design and looking at it through the lens of storytelling. So what it does is it walks you through each layer in your personal human design chart, and it gives you explorations and contemplations and stories to talk about and to integrate to help you really take back control over the story you tell the world and yourself about who you are and how you are.
I love that. That would be extremely helpful. I'm thinking like for a lot of the people that are experiencing like burnout and like
Mm-hmm.
all the different areas that play into that as well. I'm wondering exactly like how many areas, like when you're talking like the quantum wellness, like how many areas is that somebody needs to be aware of that they need to get in alignment?
Well, I think what I would say is
Yeah.
there's an infinite number of areas, right? It could be any area of your life. And I think really the purpose of this body of work is that you have to figure out all the different areas. Like we spend a lot of time, for example, working on our money stories, right? Especially as an entrepreneur. We work on our money
Yep.
story. But really the money story isn't the money story. The money story is really the story about, do I love myself? Do I value myself? And do I trust in the goodness of the universe, right? And if we can line, and is it safe for me to be authentic, right? If I can be myself in the world and I can trust that I can be myself in the world, if we can really fix and heal that story, well, that manifestation of that story will show up in a positive way in your money or in your relationships or in any of the areas. It's almost like that story that you tell, your identity is the foundation or the roots of the tree of anything you create.
Is like perfect alignment with what I've heard before. Maxwell Maltz had said that you'll never outperform your own self-identity.
Yes, I love that.
And I guess, what would you say to that? Almost like, is there more to that? Like, you'll never outperform your own self identity.
No, I think that's absolutely true. I think you will only be able to manifest to the degree to which to in proportion to the story you tell about who you are. Your identity, in other words, what you're willing to allow yourself to experience and who you're willing to allow yourself to be are going to either increase what you create or decrease what you create, because you can't create more than who you are. You might be able to, but you wouldn't see it, and you would probably sabotage it as soon as it showed up, because it would. Here's a good way of thinking about it. Think of it like this.
Yeah.
Think of your story, your identity as being like the thermostat setting on
Yep.
your heater or your cooler, right? So you set it at a certain setting. It might get hotter in the house, but it's going to instantly work. The heater's going to work to get back to the temperature that it's set at. So your story is like that setting on the thermostat. And if you go beyond that story, you're probably going to discreate it pretty quickly and bring it back to whatever that baseline setting is.
That makes a lot of sense for like people that I've seen that are so successful right out the gate in business.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden they start losing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That makes sense because they weren't ready for it.
Right, exactly. The thermostat setting wasn't there. And honestly, I'll tell you, the journey of being an entrepreneur is the journey of resetting your thermostat. That's really the root of the work you do as an entrepreneur, is you keep having to recalibrate that thermostat and opening it up and setting it at higher and higher settings until you're like, okay, I got it. I am it.
That's what I'm pretty much finding out. And it's like the journey has been 7 years already in one area of it, like for my own business, not dealing with a network marketing company, because I've had that like over almost 20 years experience in that. But I'm like, overall, it's like when it's your own business, you're not connected to other places.
Mm-hmm.
It's a totally different ballgame than when you actually are still connected to different areas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's completely different. It's a lot more challenging. Like you said, you're constantly changing that thermostat okay, I got to hit the next level, next level. And my husband's like, what are you talking about? Like this next level? And I'm like, nope. I'm like, every time I'm like, I swear I'm leveling up. Like there's something
Mhm,
that keeps
mhm.
shifting, keeps changing. So where can our audience get in contact with you to find out more and get a hold of your book?
So you can find my book on any major online retail outlet, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, Amazon. And you can learn more about quantum human design and quantum wellness at quantumhumandesign.com.
Awesome. Well, I am sure that our audience enjoyed this as much as I did. I'm 100% sure of that one. This was just fascinating. Like I said, a whole new level of like awareness on this. I just love this a lot. So I just want to remind our listeners to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Healing for the Soul podcast and keep coming back for more episodes. And thank you everyone for your time and your energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast.